if it's a joke, if it whatever it is, when you hear an Afrikaans person just saying like "fuck," you know that there's a problem. Just so like I would say that that's probably my favorite swear word.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Early Bird. I am very excited to be back again with you guys. Another podcast, another Tuesday. It's great to be back. I'm sorry about the slightly late upload last week, but we're back on schedule now. And we have a very exciting plan for you guys today. So this is the Early Bird podcast, the podcast where we speak about raw and relatable content in an open and relatable way. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today. And our guest today is someone close to my heart. He goes by the name of Oliver Heidemann. And we have a few questions for him today. So yeah, I can't wait to dive in and to chat to him about those things.
Thank you very much, Ollie, for having me on the podcast. I am very grateful that I've had the opportunity to join you today, and it's a very exciting venture that we are on together. And I can't wait to hear what you want to chat about today.
Well, thank you for joining us. The first thing I wanted to ask is, why did you start filmmaking?
Oh wow, that is a very interesting question. So basically, when I started filmmaking, it was sort of it came around accidentally. So I basically got a camera from my friend, which I bought. It was a GoPro. I bought a GoPro from my friend for about, I think it was 200 rand, which is literally in dollars that would be like $10 now. So practically nothing. He thought it was broken, and I started messing around, and I made a few videos on the GoPro. And then my grandparents got me a toy drone for Christmas, and I literally loved this drone so much. But it didn't have any camera or anything. It was literally about 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. It was tiny. And I flew it all over, and then one day crashed it into the road and it got run over by a car. So I took it back to the shop and then convinced them to give me a drone with a little camera on it, which was a much better one, because I said it was their fault that it fell out of the sky, so they must give me a better one. And they gave me this little drone with this terrible camera. Like, you could not see what was happening, but I was so obsessed with trying to create like a drone movie that I started editing an iMovie, and I used the GoPro and this little toy drone to make all of these videos, and just carried on doing that for about a year. And started really loving it, and I just sort of fell in love with it, and decided I want to carry on doing this. And then I managed to do some jobs and earn some money, and then buy my first proper camera, and it sort of just evolved from there over the last few years. I think that was about 4 or 5 years ago now. So it's just sort of, it wasn't an intentional thing. I didn't always think, oh, I want to go into film, but it sort of just happened. And I definitely would not consider doing anything differently.
Wow, very, very interesting, and a pretty good story. My next question would be, if your life didn't
Well,
have any limits,
That's
what
a very
would you do
interesting
with it?
question. For me, I try to live my life as if there aren't any limits with what I can do and my potential. I feel that my biggest limit is fear, and I try to overcome my fear by making decisions based on my judgment, my knowledge, and my intuition and my heart, rather than making decisions based off fear. Because I feel like if I want to be as true to myself as I can be, I need to live my life through making my own decisions, and through possibly also just being clear with those decisions, despite what other people may say and other people's opinions. Because for me, if I'm not being like true to myself and what I believe in, then I can't be happy with myself and have a good relationship with myself. And that's something that's so important to me. And just on the few years that I've spent on this planet, I have become more and more aligned to myself, I think, and try to push my fears away, in a sense, so that I can just go on the journey that is me and is closest to myself, because I believe I have a unique purpose on this planet. So I want to stick with that and do whatever I can to follow that, while building up other people around me. That's my biggest thing. That if I can make a decision and it won't have a negative effect on people around me or on other people, even if it's a controversial decision, if it doesn't have a negative effect on other people, then I'm going to go for that decision if I strongly believe in it. And I think that that's been a really interesting introspection for me over the last few months, especially.
Well, so my my thing then is for
I
you
mean,
with
I guess
your
that
passion.
that's so. I didn't really answer the question, but I would
Yeah.
I would carry on doing what I'm doing, and I would want to do more film work and work with more companies and maybe make some travel films. I would love to do a documentary. Um, I would love to do a documentary at some point, and I think I would love to just follow other people who are in positions that I would like to be in. I have some big inspirations in both like the internet and filmmaking space. I've been very lucky to have sort of a mentor by the name of Lonnie Perister, who is
Wow.
a
Very
director from
interesting
Los Angeles, who's a
and
director who works with
pretty good
HBO, and he's
story.
done some amazing projects. And some of the other sort of inspirations for me would
My
be
next question would
people
be, if
like
your
Dan
life didn't have
Mace,
any
who is a
limits,
local South
what
African
would you do with
filmmaker,
it?
lives in Cape Town, and as well as Casey Neistat. And I mean, I've also in some ways have been looking at someone like Logan Paul recently, and the way that he's sort of conducted his branding and rebranded himself. And there's a lot to be said for what he's done, and I do have a lot of respect for him and how he works. So there's so many different avenues that I can't say that I have one sort of specific path that I'm 100% sure I want to go down, but I know it'll be in the filmmaking and entertainment space, and I'm going to carry on just seeing where my path takes me and what opportunities open up and how I can best utilize those opportunities in my life.
And my thing with that I was gonna say is, how does your passion and work, how do they relate, and where does it change?
I would say that I would say I have like a huge passion for what I do, and I really, it doesn't ever feel like work. Even if I'm getting paid for something, it doesn't feel to me like it's work. It feels a lot more like I'm just doing what I love and what I would be choosing to do anyway, because in many ways it is. Um, so I think that maybe like what I could say though is which parts there are some parts obviously that aren't my favorite, like the admin side of it. Some parts of editing, for example, like I found editing this podcast to be quite tiring because there's not as much creativity in
Yeah.
it. It's more just labor intensive, so it's like 3-4 hours even sometimes just to edit the podcast and just cut out the pieces that I don't want, and to just get everything done. And doing thumbnails for YouTube and uploading stuff and checking statistics and finding, I mean, I enjoy it and it's part of it, but it's not necessarily my favorite part. So that part to me is probably more of like the work side, as well as doing invoicing and stuff like that. But then my passion, I'm so passionate about what I do in my work that it comes easily. It doesn't really feel like work, even when I'm doing those things that I don't really like as much.
No, very fair fair point. And so my next thing is, obviously you've been in business for a long time, and you've been interested in business for a long time, and how did that come to be, and how did that possibly involve some sacrifices in your life, and involve you sacrificing some things?
So I've always been very interested in business, without even realizing it at sometimes. So, for example, when I was in, I think it was, I don't know, grade 3, I would have been, what, I think 10, I'm guessing, about 10, 11, I think. I was probably like my first little business that I set up. And I saw that there was a craze going around at school and people were selling yo-yos. So I chatted to my mum and found a wholesaler for yo-yos. And I would buy like 20 yo-yos and buy them for like 10 rand or wholesale, buy a box of them and go and sell them at school to the other kids for like 30 rand. And I would make profit, and then, I mean, all the profit I made I would use to buy ice creams after school. But like, it was it was still like it was something that I was super passionate about, and I really enjoyed it. And then from there, when I went on to, well, firstly there wasn't really much sacrifice at that time, but then I went on to, when I was 12, I started DJing, and I started DJing for a lot of different parties, at my friends' parties, people at my school. I would DJ at their parties, and I mean, I was happy. I was getting paid to DJ, and I love DJing. I still love DJing. It's just a hobby of mine, but I got paid to do that. But I guess like there was a bit of a sacrifice in that I couldn't really enjoy the party necessarily as much, like chat to my mates, and do other things. I was working, and like when I'm working, I take it seriously and I make sure I do the best job that I can, because obviously someone is paying their time and they have invested their time and they're investing their money into me to do to provide a service for them. So I always try to take that quite seriously and respect that. But that was a bit of sacrifice. And then over the last few years with my filmmaking, it's mostly just time. Because if I'm choosing to film something, or if I have a client project that I need to have done, even if I'm at a friend's house or whatever, I try to still include my friends and see them as much as possible. But
Yeah.
what, yeah.
So we're gonna try keep this short. Sorry, but we've also got a few questions from our
Mhm.
subscribers, and our first question is, what was the first piece of camera equipment that you bought?
Well, the first piece of camera equipment that I bought was a GoPro. I think I mentioned it earlier. It was a GoPro from my friend, which I got for like $200, and he thought it was broken. So I literally bought it from him. He thought it was broken. I managed to fix it up, get it to work, and then I used that to film. So yeah, it was pretty unique
Yeah,
and interesting,
well,
interesting story.
and one of our last questions is, what inspires you to carry on and keep on creating content like you do? And
I think a lot of what
get bored
inspires
over
me
it.
to carry on creating content and doing what I do now is possibly hearing from other people that they are interested in what I'm doing. And I think that there is a lot of sort of, I don't know, sense of purpose in that. And it's cool to see that other people respect what you're doing and like maybe possibly can take something away from it, whatever it is. But for me, it's just something that I feel it was my purpose. So I just, I know that it's what makes me tick and what makes me excited. So I just have to carry on
Yeah, I
doing
can
it. I
understand
think that's
that.
for me. It's not really a question.
You want to benefit other people and improve the people of people's lives who are around you. And on that note, what
Exactly.
advice would you give to anyone who is wanting to start out in the filming or content creation space at this time in
What
2020?
advice? My
As a young
advice.
person who
I mean,
is
I haven't
doing
been
this.
doing this for that long, to be fair. But my advice to anyone who's thinking of maybe possibly joining the film space or wanting to do content creation, I would say that the best thing that I've learned or that anyone's ever told me is to just do it. And by that, I mean, I don't mean don't think about it or don't plan it, but I think people can get so caught up in the ideals and what they want to do and the fear that they end up possibly not doing what they wanted to do. And my biggest advice would be, if you really feel passionate about something, go ahead and do it. And if you fail, then you fail and you'll learn and then you'll grow
Yeah,
from it. But
amazing.
don't not do it because you're
Wow.
scared of other people's opinions or scared that
And
you'll
now
fail.
for our final question, which is our regularly scheduled question. What is your favorite swear word?
I've seen this question in the
This
episodes.
guy,
I haven't actually really thought about this too much. I've seen other people being asked, but I haven't really thought about it. I would say my favorite swear word is probably, I don't know, I would say it's probably fuck, but it's like the Afrikaans version, because there's something about that just like it has an emphasis. And when you hear someone saying that, you know that like either something, whatever it is, it's serious. If it's a joke, whatever it is, when you hear an Afrikaans person just saying like fuck, you know that there's a problem. Just so like I would say that's probably my favorite swear word. It's not a very big story behind it, but yeah, that's probably
it
it.
can be used in multiple ways. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we don't have a massive plan for today, so I just wanted to say thank you.
To say thank you so much for having me on the podcast today, and yeah, it's been great. I'm glad that I could answer some questions. We're keeping this episode, I understand, nice and short, which is cool, and I understand that the viewers can expect to go back to the normal podcasts from next week. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, I can't wait to see where this podcast goes. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching.
Yeah, exactly. They can expect to go back to the normal podcasts from next week. This has been a special episode, and I've been very lucky to have Ollie here to chat to me. And yeah, to be honest, I'm not looking forward to the editing process with this. But it's been a great episode, and I hope you guys have been able to take something valuable out of this. And I would just like to say thank you so much to everyone who's been watching, who's watched the podcast, who's subscribed. It really makes a massive difference to me, and yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm super grateful for all of you guys. So sending out lots of love to everyone. Hope you guys are keeping well, and I can't wait to chat to you guys again in the next episode. So peace out, and I'll see you guys next week.